What's going on, YouTube? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Welcome to Texas Podcast. I want to start off thanking everybody that's been subscribing, liking the comments, dropping comments in the videos, good or bad. It's all accepted. Uh, Today's video, I'm just going to be dropping content or videos of things that I find interesting. You know, maybe y'all out there, the audience or subscribers might find it as well. This story is about Randy Payne. The 90s, 80s, and Texas prisons, man, was wild, man. There was, you know, the prison family still had a control of what was going on in there. It was running wild, the gangs were barely getting there, the early 90s, all the Crips, Bloods, you know, all your neighborhood gangs were going into prison the early 90s. And then at the same time, you also had guys like Randy Keith Payne going to prison. Seems like he was either an alcoholic or a drug addict, but something was causing him to keep on going back to prison at a young age. And this letter is from his mom. She wrote to this blog. Uh, it's a sad story, what happened to Randy Keith Payne. And we're gonna, after I read this, they got a picture in there of him on how they left him, and they left the dude pretty bad. I mean, back then in Texas, they still had steel toe boots. Some people were still having steel toe boots around, and them steel toe boots, they can do damage. So I'm gonna read sh this message from Randy's mother, and then I'm gonna pull up the appeals from the people that got convicted, because in there it tells a little bit more of what he went through that day. It's sad that this guy went through 4 fights by 2 different groups. You know, my son's problems with the law started shortly after he graduated from high school. By the time he turned 21, he had been convicted of burglarizing 2 buildings and was in jail again for breaking into a storage warehouse and stealing liquor. So he had already had 2 previous convictions for breaking into a building and a storage for stealing liquor. So I don't know if he had an alcoholic problem or a drug problem, but he was convicted of stealing liquor. Randy arrived August 4th, 1994, at the maximum security Terrell unit, a 2,250 bed prison that had been opened just 9 months earlier, just outside of Livingston, Texas. Young, nonviolent offenders are told when they reach these violent prisons, you have to fight or pay convict gangs for protection. The currency often was sex. He wouldn't pay for protection, so they jumped him. He was beaten for over 2 hours by 20 different inmates. And the guards didn't see a thing, they claimed. They didn't see a thing till they spotted Randy's bloody body sprawled in the day room. Randy died a few days later from head injuries in a Houston hospital. So the dude didn't want to pay protection, and he fought and fought and fought and fought. I mean, when we go through the appeal report, documents from the 2 guys that got charged for his case, it's it's sad, man. I mean, he basically went through 4 fights in one day, and nobody helped him out. Randy got the death penalty for a non-violent offense. Within weeks after my son had passed away, Anthony, who was serving an 18-month sentence, an 18-year-old robbery from Travis County, also passed away at the Terrell unit at the hands of other convicts to whom he refused to pay protection as well. The fourth convict to die at Terrell was Michael McCoy, a convicted car thief from Dickinson, Texas, who was beaten by two guards. The two guards were indicted for the murder of McCoy. They were both found guilty and indicted for the murder. 10 years. After 99 days in prison, a small town judge paroled them both. So the two guards, they got a sentence of 10 years, and after 100 days, a small town judge paroled them. There are so many unexplained deaths in our prison system, and the majority of them are young, 18 to 30-year-old, non-violent offenders. Why are these young men put in the same prison with violent offenders? We have asked these questions so many times, and to this day have not received a truthful answer. Since starting CAPS, I have received hundreds of letters from these young offenders, and this violence is widespread. And you can see from his picture, man, he's not too big of a dude, man. You know, there's another picture down here below that they got him all beat up, and you know, I'll probably show it towards the end of the video. But they did a number on the kid. And this is one of the guys that got convicted for the unaliving Randy Payne. And it's his appeal from documents, and it's gonna give a little bit more detail. I'm gonna go to both of them because both of them have different testimonies from different eyewitnesses. And we're gonna see the perspective of different people of what he went through. And this is the way it is in Texas prisons. Randy Payne, the victim and one of the few white inmates in close custody at the Terrell unit, arrived at the prison in August 1994. Inmate Lonnie Carney testified he asked Payne if he was going to fight or ride. Payne indicated his intentions were to fight. Another inmate named Angelo approached and told Carney to stay out of his business, a message that Angelo was going to court check Payne. It was obvious to everyone that Payne was going to have to fight that day in order to avoid paying protection. Inmate Stewart testified that the Texas prison system in general, and the Terrell unit in particular, a newly arrived inmate is so called out by inmates. Everyone either had to stay down or get hogged. Usually an inmate needed to fight 2 or 3 times before being accepted as a regular. Stewart noticed a commotion involving several blacks and SAs. So, you know, this saying there was two groups. It was Mexicans and the blacks doing this to this guy. But right here, you have the blacks and you have SA. And I can only imagine or think that SA means for the San Antonios. Because they were still the last ones in the 90s to still be tied into the families. They were the last ones. So if I'm correct, I mean, that's what that SA means, the San Antonios. Because he noticed a commotion involving several blacks in SAs, saw Moffett sitting on the stairs with a cut over his eye, and went upstairs to the showers where he encountered a badly bleeding Randy Payne. He and another inmate assessed the gravity of the situation, and they said amongst themselves, this dude's about to die. Payne stumbled down the stairs where he was clicked by some Hispanic prisoners who kicked Payne 15 to 20 times in the face with steel toe boots. Them steel toe boots. Inmate Bradley Lane Phillips testified Payne told him that there was people trying to make him ride. Later that day, another inmate told him it's going down. And he saw Moffitt, Nisbet, and two other black inmates fighting Payne. So they tagged, they basically jumped him, man, 4-4. Instead of going one by one, they jumped him one time. They knocked Payne to the ground and kicked him while Payne curled up helpless on the ground. The inmates walked off. Later, Phillips saw Payne and some black inmates walk into a cell where other testimony established another beating being taking place. So that's the second one. And then he sees 3 or 4 more Hispanic inmates assault Payne again. Inmate Bradley Lynn Phillips testified Payne told him that, according to Matthew Eugene, before the attack of the black inmates had been discussing the new white boy on the block. The first fight took place when Misfit assaulted Payne in the shower on the first level. Nisbet, Marvin Richardson, and one other inmate were involved in this attack. The next fight occurred when the same individuals attacked Payne in the third level shower. The third and fourth fights involved the group of Hispanic inmates who attacked Payne on the third level and in the stairwell. Then Moffitt, Nisbet, and Richardson kicked and hit Payne once again on the first level. When asked if the attack occurred in front of God and everybody, Harris replied, "Well, if God were present, yes." At this point, the officers arrived and racked the inmates up. This guy, Keith Block, I guess he's a white guy, you know, but I guess there weren't that many white guys in that unit at the time. Because Keith Block testified, Mosfet and Angela Nisbet were talking after chow about making Payne ride. Moffett and Nesbet decided that they were going to be the two inmates that would start the horde checking. Moffett told Payne to get a cup of water out the shower, then followed Payne into the shower and struck him on the head. Payne started to get the better of Mosfet, so Moffett called in Nesbet, who took over the attack. Then they called in Marvin Richardson. So Payne had, I guess he was holding his own on Moffett. And then Moffett called Nipset, and then Nipset called in, they called Marvin Richardson. Payne was already on the ground, badly beaten. Payne's mouth was torn up, his nose was bleeding. Then Richardson and other inmates assaulted Payne in the cell. So they made him go in the cell, and they ran it again. That's the second fight. And one of the Hispanic inmates declared, "We are going to show you black dudes how this here goes." And along with other Hispanics, assaulted Payne on the stairs. When Payne made his way back to the first level, Moffett and the Hispanics were talking. The Hispanic inmate ran over and kicked Payne in the face 3 or 4 times, hitting his head against the wall each time. Then Moffett and an Hispanic inmate ran over to Payne and started beating him, telling him, "Man, you're going to ride. You are going to ride. You are going to ride with the both of us. You are going to ride with the blacks, and you are going to ride with the Mexicans." Robert Green also testified he saw Mosfet and other black inmates beating Payne in the head and jumping up and down on him. Yeah, I believe that. I'm jumping down because on the picture that they left him right there, man, you can clearly see the imprint on the guy's head. You know what I mean? Like they did a number on him. Mofet, he's one of the guys that got convicted. He got a 25-year sentence added to run concurrent with the 12-year sentence that he had. So he went in with the 12 and picked up a 25 for trying to hog people. And the other guy in this bit, he was serving he was already serving a 75-year sentence for aggravated robbery, and he got a 48-year sentence added to his 75. So he wasn't worried about it. He didn't get nothing because he was already doing 75. They gave him 48 to run concurrent for that body. I mean, he didn't care. It says right here, these are the witness statements. Keith Block testified that when a new inmate, especially a white inmate or anyone who was either small or noticeably frightened, arrives in close custody at the Terrell unit, he must either accept the protection of a stronger inmate in return for sexual favors or commissary privileges, or fight other inmates until his ability to defend himself was recognized by the other inmates. According to Block, sometimes an inmate is challenged to fight a succession of combatants, and sometimes a group attacks simultaneously. On August 5th, 1994, Nisbet and another inmate, Moffett, approached Randy Payne and asked him if he was going to ride or pay protection. Nisbet insisted Payne would have to ride with someone. You know, Block, I think Keith Block is a white guy because we'll get into that right now, here in a little bit of what he says more. Block knew they were going to attack Payne because this is what happens when you ask the individual to ride and he rejects. They told Payne to go about his business, but between themselves, they continued to discuss who was going to horde check Payne. That is, force him to comply with their demands. They called Payne back over, tell him to go upstairs for a hot water for some coffee. They followed Payne into the shower and attacked him there, beating Payne with their fists and feet. Then two other inmates, Richardson and Hodges, joined the attack, forcing Payne into a cell and beating him more. Payne made his way down to the second floor shower, followed by his attackers. So they were chasing them down the stairs. The Hispanic inmates approached from the other side of the day room and attacked Payne. One of them said, "We are going to show you how to do some horde checking around here." Bradley Phillips related much of the same series of events as Block. According to Phillips, Nesbitt and other inmates beat Payne down to the ground and stomped on him while Payne lay curled in a fetal position. The attacks continued as Payne made his way to the bottom floor. At least half an hour after the attack began, someone arrived from the infirmary and removed Payne from the day room from Blunt. Poor dude, man. They stomped him out, you know, and it's sad, man, that was, but that's what happens in these Texas prisons. If you can't hold your own, you know, that's the definition of breaking somebody. What they broke him, they it's a sad situation, you know. But see, that was the saying back in the day, you know, you were gonna either fight, fuck, or bust a 60. Now I think they bumped it to 75. That was the mentality when you hit these Texas prisons. But I don't think these Texas prisons are anywhere near when they were in the 80s and 90s. You know, there's some kind of, you know, control because of numbers. But the 80s and the 90s, the early 90s were deadly in Texas prisons. I didn't get to experience the 90s. I got to experience the 2000s, 2001, where for me it was more of like a at that time it was like nothing really going on. Everything was like smooth. It wasn't like how they would tell me it was in the 90s. It was more almost like when after there's war, there's peace, and that's when I went to prison. There really wasn't nothing going on. All the stuff happened previously.